Ever wonder how to make the most of your 1,144 minutes a day? We're gonna unpack how we tackle and prioritize our to-dos as a consultant and a healthcare project manager to make the most of our days. Katie, thank you so much for joining today. Katie is one of my friends who balances so much and does it just so seamlessly. She works her full-time job, she trains for marathons, and has a very full social calendar. Even this morning we were texting at like 9:30 in the morning and she had already ran a 4-mile race. So I know, Katie, that you have a lot of helpful tips and tricks for how to help us manage our time. So let's jump right into it. So to set the stage, Katie, could you describe your career and how you chose it?
I'm a project manager for a healthcare software company. So I work with customers to ensure that when we implement software, it's done on time and under budget. I did not think that I would end up in this career or industry, but I've always been drawn to the healthcare industry because I'm essentially helping people help other people. So it's the sense of purpose that really gets me excited to wake up in the morning.
Your career really is the best marriage between helping people but still having that business aspect. And meanwhile, I'm in consulting, which is just so vague, but essentially I help companies implement controls around the technology that houses their financial data. And kind of similar, I was drawn to it because it's the marriage of business, but then also technology. So now we'll go through what our typical day looks like and how we break down those 1,144 minutes. So for me, I wake up a little bit before 7. I walk my dog, commute to the office or a client a couple times a week, and I like to read on the commute because I find it's a nice little start to my day, kind of like a little me time. I try to stick to starting work between like 8:30 and 9 and then wrapping up before 6, but obviously it can extend, especially if you're working from home. It's kind of hard to have that separation. And after work, I'll go to the gym a couple times a week, or if I'm commuting home from the office or a client site, I like to listen to a podcast. Katie actually turned me on to a really good business podcast called Morning Brew Daily. So if you need a business podcast, there you go. Then once I get home, I walk my dog, catch up with my boyfriend who I live with, make dinner, read, and then go to bed. And that's pretty much my day. Katie, what makes up your typical day?
So I currently work from home, which means that I have a lot of flexibility in my mornings. I like to wake up with the sun. So typically these days that's around 6 a.m. And then I think of my morning as broken up into 2 parts. So I like to wake up my mind. So I usually do a meditation on the Calm app. And then I like to wake up my body. So I like to do something physical but light. So a quick yoga workout or a quick walk, just something to wake me up before I'm diving straight into work and getting ready for the day. So then I shower and get ready for the day. And this is where I listen to a podcast. So something about pop culture, or just the latest trending topics. And I find that during the monotonous parts of my day, it's fun to add something to look forward to. So that's where I like listening to a podcast, just so that it doesn't feel like the same thing every day. I jump into work around 8 or 9, depending on when my first meeting is. And my day is a lot of meetings, right? So working with customers, working with internal teams, so a lot of talking, which is fun. And then I usually wrap up around 5 or 6, and then go for a workout, make dinner, and then catch up on my Bravo shows, read, and then get ready for bed. Now, because I live alone and work from home, I find that I need to get my social time in. I'm a natural extrovert, which means at my core, I draw my energy from being around other people. So I find that I need to consciously make an effort to ensure that I get my social time in. So when I'm planning out my week, I try to plan for 2 social events during the work week, just because I find if I don't plan it, then I just get stuck in the grind of the week. So whether it's doing a run with my run club, meeting up with a social club, talking to my sisters while making dinner, just really making sure that I'm getting my social interaction in to help break up the week more.
Catching up on Bravo is also a top priority of mine. And when you were saying that you meditate in the morning, at first I was like, I wish I could find time to do that. But then I realized walking my dog by the water in the morning is kind of my way of doing that, like not having any input, just kind of being with myself before the day starts. And I feel like in this day and age especially, it's important to take that time to just be with yourself without a podcast on in the background, even though those are great, but music, a TV show, just to kind of have that mental clarity. Also important, like you were saying, is knowing how to recharge. I know you were saying like you're an extrovert, and for me it's the opposite. I'm very much an introvert, so I have to do the opposite of what you do. I have to make sure I have time just to myself to recharge rather than making sure I schedule those social activities. I have to make sure I have my me time. So we talked about what your typical day looks like, but how do you determine what goes into your day and what you plan to accomplish each day?
At work, I live and breathe by my Outlook tasks. If it's not an Outlook task, I'm not going to do it. So everything needs to go into that system. I also have certain tasks that auto-generate each day. So for example, to ensure that I'm sending out an agenda for my meetings 24 hours in advance, I have a task on Monday that says, prepare agendas for Wednesday, and then a task that generates Tuesday that is send agendas for Wednesday, and so on and so forth. So that just sets me up for success so that I do send those agendas out ahead of time. So really taking advantage of the system and making it work for me. So for work task prioritization, then I have a general high priority, high profile rule. So looking at all of my tasks, if it is high priority, something that is for an escalated customer or for an upcoming deadline, that's something that needs to get done today. So it's a high priority task. Make sure I plan time in my day to get that done. Then I'll move to the next category, which is your high profile tasks. So anything that maybe it's not due today, but getting it done today will make me look good. So it is a deliverable for an executive or a status report that's going to go out to the whole team. So things that will help me get ahead in the game if I need to. Using those two criteria helps me determine what I need to get done that day. And if it doesn't fall into either of those two categories, high priority or high profile, it's usually something that can wait till the next day.
I'm pretty similar. For me, it's a to-do list in a OneNote where I take everything from the prior week that I didn't get done onto this week's and then add to it as the week goes on. And then also similar to you, for the day I make, needs to get done and bold that, or would like to get done to make me look good. And then as I complete things, checking them off, which is just so satisfying to do. And like you were saying, Katie, it really helps kind of break up that long laundry list of to-dos that can feel kind of intimidating and make it like, okay, this is what these 3 tasks I can get done, and make it feel like you can really accomplish something and start chipping away at that long list. And pivoting into personal tasks, something that has really worked for me is not viewing personal priorities like reading, listen to a podcast, hang out with friends as an option, just like how I wouldn't view a client meeting as an option. I would schedule it and stick to it. I'll schedule workouts in my calendar, like every Wednesday I'll go to the same bar class, or on these certain days I'll do these certain workouts just to hold myself accountable. And Kobe Bryant put it really well in an interview. He said, don't negotiate with yourself. You have so many other people that you'll compromise with or have to negotiate with. Don't do it with yourself. If you say you're going to do something, be truthful to yourself and just do it, which is easier said than done, obviously.
I agree. You'll make time for what's important for you. So it's super important to define what those non-negotiables are. Now, I use Google Calendar for my personal events, and I've been doing that since college when I had a ton of extracurricular activities to keep track of. So I live and breathe by Outlook for my work tasks, but I use Google Calendar for all of my personal events. For me, one of my non-negotiables is working out, prioritizing my physical health. So at the beginning of the week, I will schedule out all of my workouts around what my other personal commitments are that week. So taking the time to do the mental gymnastics up front of, all right, I have drinks set on Thursday and a date on Monday. So I'm going to work out in the morning on those 2 days, but also making sure that I'm running and lifting on different days to maximize recovery time between workouts. Really ensures that I'm not negotiating on any of those commitments that I made to myself. Because working out is so important to me, I want to make sure that I'm making time for it in my schedule. So taking the time to plan it all out at the beginning of the week ensures that I can do that. Now, what I found to be most exhausting is finding time for those life admin tasks. So things like budgeting, purchasing flights, planning out trips, planning out your week, right? These tasks aren't always fun, but they need to happen. I used to save all those tasks for Sunday and have Sunday be my life admin day, right? Found that wasn't always the best strategy for me because I get the Sunday scaries right around 3 p.m. on Sundays. So instead I found that, all right, if I map out what I need to do this week, right, in that life admin category, so I need to do my budget for the month of July. If I know that that's something I need to do, I'll just plan it out then in my week. So rather than actually doing it on Sunday, I plan out when in the week I'm going to do it, which I find allows me to spend Sunday doing something more relaxing, such as reading or catching up on more Bravo shows, to prepare for the week so that I can be my best self starting out the week.
That was really helpful. And I think once you get the prioritization down, the next step is really how to manage your energy to get through those to-dos. And there's a couple different ways of doing this. I know I've heard of like time box increment, auditing your time. And naturally, I work in those time box increments. Being in consulting, we have to charge our time to a client. So I have a post-it note like on my computer of every 15 minutes what client I'm charging my time to. And that kind of acts as like an audit of my time essentially. And like we talked about earlier, I like to focus on those higher priority tasks first because it helps with spending my energy on the most important tasks for the day. Katie, what about you? Like, how do you manage your energy to get through the tasks for your to-dos?
So at my job, I also have to track all of my time, but it's more so from a project metrics efficiency standpoint. How long does it take a project manager to do this set of tasks in the discovery phase of a project, right? So then I find myself just naturally asking, how can I be more efficient in everything that I do? Which sounds sick, but it's actually very helpful. An example is last week I had a day where I had 3 back-to-back meetings. One was a meeting that I was leading, super important. One was a meeting that I was included as optional on, but it was a meeting with a customer. And then the last one was a one-to-one with my manager. So 3 back-to-back meetings, needed to be on for all 3 of them. However, I wanted to make sure that that first meeting that I was leading would go super well. And I also wanted to make sure I was in the right headspace for my one-to-one with my manager. So I went and asked the person that was leading that middle optional customer meeting that I was on if I really needed to be there, if it's just something that I could read the notes afterwards. And I ended up being able to skip the meeting, which then freed up an hour block of my time so that I had time to decompress after I had my important meeting and get myself in the right mindset for my one-to-one with my manager. So found that not only did it free up time to manage my energy levels appropriately, but I also had more time then to get other things done in the day. For myself, I find that to be super important to be conscious of my energy levels throughout the day. And I specifically remember a professor in college told us as we were graduating that the first year in the real world would be really tough, because most of us are not used to being a working professional yet. But then after 3 months or so, you learn to conserve your energy better throughout the workday. And it makes sense, right? Because in college, you have 2 to 3 classes, a break, maybe some study time, right? So your day is naturally broken up for those dips in energy. Whereas as a working professional, you sometimes are going for 8 to 10, sometimes more hours a day, and you have to be on the entire time. So it takes some time to learn how are you going to manage your energy levels so that you are on your A game for the most important parts of the day.
That's a great point, Katie. And I think it's important to we're a couple years out of college, but still to keep in mind that like it's an evolving thing that you're learning, and you're learning how to do better and better each really day as it goes on. And I think the key is learning where your energy is needed. Like you were saying, that one-to-one with your manager, you need to be on your A game, and that first meeting that you were leading, and protecting that time. I know for me, if I'm in the office or at a client site and I have some of those need to be on my A game calls, I'll sneak out by myself because, again, introvert, I need some time to myself, and get lunch solo so I have time to decompress. So then the rest of the 5 hours for the day, I can be on my A game. But that took me a long time to learn. And at first I thought I just need to be social all the time, even though that's not what works for me. And so that kind of backfires a little bit. And digging deeper into energy, what part of your day typically does take the most energy, and how do you manage that?
So for me, at 2 p.m., something happens where I am my worst self at that time of the day. It is very tough. I think it's when the day finally catches up to me. It's the time of the day where I convince myself that maybe I can skip my workout. Maybe I should cancel those plans, right? Knowing this about myself, I've developed this ritual where 2 p.m. is my caffeine and candles time. So I light a fun candle. I make myself another cup of tea or another cup of coffee, really to just give myself that extra boost through that lull in the day. So that I know I can get the rest of the day done full energy. I also try to avoid scheduling meetings during that time if possible, which isn't always feasible. But again, knowing that that's how my energy levels are throughout the day, I do what I can.
I can definitely relate. I think having something to look forward to after that post-lunch lull is really important. I know for me, I try to rotate what teas I drink in the afternoon. So if I'm at a client site, I'll drink like this certain roasted green tea. But if I'm at my company's office, they have this really good Earl Grey tea that I go for. So it's the little things and caffeine that keep us going. So we've talked a lot about how we currently spend our time, but I think it's important to unpack how we would like to spend our time and what we should do more and less of to get there. Work-wise, for me, I know I want to spend more time doing higher level project stuff, so the art of delegation is really important, and check out my video on managing up and down for helpful tips and tricks there. Personally, I've been trying to do less of just doom scrolling on my phone and really changing my mindset to view that as an opportunity cost. So if I'm spending time scrolling on my phone, that means I'm not having time, texting Katie or reading or, watching a show, something else that's on my to-do list. This is for sure easier said than done. And the first step is definitely being conscious of how you're spending your time, kind of that audit of time like we were talking about earlier. And I think at least I'm telling myself, trying to be kind to yourself as you're doing that shift. So if you find yourself, or at least for me, if I've found myself, scrolling for 20 minutes before bed when I wanted to maybe finish a chapter of my book, acknowledging it and then just pivoting and not having that moment of, oh my gosh, how am I still doing this when I told myself I wasn't going to do this anymore? What about for you, Katie?
I would like to spend more time in the present moment and enjoying the present moment. So as a project manager, I'm always planning ahead. I'm always planning for the next week, month, year, next project phase, right? So sometimes that translates over into my personal life. So I'm thinking of planning the next trip, planning my next career move, planning, the next city that I want to live in, right? I'm trying to consciously remind myself to enjoy this current day, week, month, life stage that I'm in. And I've created a fun New York City bucket list, actually, to help me enjoy doing the things that I can do now as a single young adult living in New York City.
I love that. And I think it's so important to intentionally just take the time to recognize where you are, and realize that all of that's beautiful. Thank you so much, Katie, for taking the time out of your busy schedule to reflect with us and share your time management and prioritization tips and tricks. I think it's so important for us career girls who are still on our way to start unpacking and talking about this stuff. We don't need to wait until we're CEOs or founded a company. Please leave any takeaways, time management tips and tricks in the comments down below, as well as other topics that would be helpful for us to unpack as we all continue on our way. Okay. Sorry.
I'm a project manager. It's going to be so...
The little things and caffeine that keep us going. I'm going to do that one more.